Hi, Jessica. I want to make a brief video to both respond to both your emails. And the first one is, sorry to hear about your dog dying. So I know my pets have been a big part of my family, and so when we lose a dog or a cat or any kind of pet, it's a big loss. So I'm sorry that your dog passed away, and hope that the memories of your dog those live on, and as you're missing your furry friend and your family member. So hope you and your family doing okay. I got an aging cat, so I'm going to be facing that pretty soon myself, and I've gone through loss of pets before, so you have my condolences losing your buddy. And I also want to respond to the question. It's a very good question you asked me last week, and you asked me, would Japan have been building a colonial empire if it wasn't for the Europeans colonizing parts of Asia and the Japanese feeling like this is a trend they need to participate on? Would they have thought about it on their own? So that is a really good question, and the answer is a little more complicated, but I'm trying to make it short. The idea of a colonial empire or to conquer other nations, even to sell other nations, is not a European phenomena. Tragically, it's a historic phenomena going on through all human history. Now, it is true in the question you asked, in the context of when Japan begins to construct a colonial empire in the 19th century and the 20th century. That is in the context of a big phase of European imperialism, colonization, especially of Africa and Asia. So in the context of what you're asking the question, and that Japan does begin to colonize parts of Asia, ultimately culminating in World War II, and Japan's attempt to seize nearly all of Asia. That is in the larger context of European colonization of that time period. But back to my first point, though, Japan had attempted something like this prior to any contact with the Europeans. Back in the 1590s, Japan attacked what today would be Korea and was trying to push into China, and the goal of the Japanese was to colonize nearly all of East Asia again. The Japanese emperor of the time period, actually not the emperor, but the warlord in charge, his name is Hideyoshi, and his plan was to conquer nearly all of Asia. And this is in the 1590s. Now, he got bogged down in the war in Korea with China and never was able to conquer China. But his plan was to conquer Korea, China, and push all the way into what today would be India, which is nearly all of, well, a good deal of the port of what we know today of East and Southeast Asia. Now, again, he got bogged down in Korea and fighting the Koreans and the Japanese, and so, the Koreans and Chinese, excuse me. And so his vision of taking over nearly all of Asia never came to fruition, fortunately, because that would have been terrible in many ways, devastating warfare and colonization. But that's an example of an earlier time period, Japan being expansionistic and very aggressively so. And it wasn't because of lack of trying, they did not carve out that empire. That was their intention, their plan. Now, the time period you're talking about, I think it's probably true that unquestionably Japan felt very vulnerable, and they saw that all the dominations of the world, which were in Europe in the time period, were colonizing. So did Japan need to do that? Japan probably felt like they needed to. But I did talk to my Korean wife about this, because it was a good question you asked. And she pointed out correctly, there's many other Asian nations were being colonized. Now, maybe they didn't have opportunity, but they were not, their intent in that time period of European colonization was not for them also to colonize. What I mean by that is Japan has agency. The Japanese did not have to colonize because the Europeans were doing it. Now, I'm not absolving the Europeans of that trend they had in motion. Unquestionably, they have a certain measure of responsibility. But the Japanese attempt to impose a colonial empire was a part of a trend at the time, but they also have agency to make that decision, and Japan had in previous times had attempted to do just this thing. So the answer is kind of mixed, and I'll wrap it up with that. It's kind of mixed. So yeah, I mean, undoubtedly the trend of imperialism in the 19th century and tailing off in the 20th, but Japan certainly participated. But I'll go even farther and let's fast forward a little bit from Japan early on, wanting to colonize, in this case, Korea, parts in China and Taiwan, and which took place in the 19th century. In the lead up to World War II in the 20th century, Japan decided to take all of Asia. So, and it's hard to blame the Europeans for that, although Hitler's trying to do it for all of Europe, as you guys know. As you know, Jessica. But Japan, again, is not being forced to this. The rest of the Japanese, the rest of the Asian nations are not attempting the same thing during World War II, but Japan is. So it's a combination of European imperialist trends and also Japanese decisions modeling themselves, but also a certain level of Japanese cultural, I believe, superiority that think they deserve this empire, and that it's not the first time they've attempted to construct one like this, and a sense that we have a Japanese right to this Asian empire. So I hope that answered the question. It's a very good one, and the answer has multi-layers to it. It's a very good question, Jessica. So wish you all the best, Jessica, and sorry for your loss. Take care, Jessica.